to run enhanced background checks on young people under 21 trying to buy a firearm.
And no one contends otherwise. But what are the limits? Wouldn't it be nice to hear?
We can expect in the future that more people will be carrying handguns on the streets in places like Los Angeles, Boston, and New York City.
Because people buy hundreds of guns legally and then they sell them illegally.
Conventional wisdom was we would never get any Republicans to support gun legislation, period.
Proposed legislation. All right, let's talk about the big kahuna, the huge incoming gun ban law that's shaking up the world of firearms. This proposed legislation is no joke, and it's got gun enthusiasts and activists everywhere on their toes. So what's all the fuss about? Well, this law isn't just your run-of-the-mill regulation. It's a game changer. It's like the Avengers Endgame of gun control, and it's aimed at restricting the ownership and use of specific firearms. Think semi-auto weapons and high-capacity mags. These are the real headliners. The law isn't trying to take away your grandpa's hunting rifle or the pistol you keep for self-defense, but it's casting a keen eye on those rapid-fire semi-auto beasts that have been a point of contention for a while.
Since you rewrote the rules of asylum based on the perceived degree of violence in these countries.
But for me, and for most of you, here's what it really is. It's an important first step.
To be clear, this wasn't based on violence. This is based on threats specifically to individuals, on gangs.
We can expect in the future that more people will be carrying handguns on the streets in places like Los Angeles, Boston, and New York City.
As many of you out there, either parents, relatives, and or victims yourself.
Now here's where things get a bit hairy for some folks. The Second Amendment is like the holy grail of gun rights in the United States. It's that piece of the Constitution that says we've got the right to bear arms, but, and here's the big but, this law is treading on that sacred ground. The debate is whether it's infringing on those Second Amendment rights. Gun owners are worried about their freedoms being curtailed, and they're not taking it lightly. The kicker is that this incoming gun ban law is right at the center of it all. It's the talk of the town, the headline on everyone's lips. Some folks think it's a long overdue step toward greater safety, while others are waving their flags for the Second Amendment and screaming, "Hands off my gun." So in a nutshell, this proposed gun ban law is like a superhero showdown pitting gun control advocates against staunch gun rights defenders. It's changing the game, and its outcome could be felt for years to come. So whether you're for it or against it, there's no denying that it's a force to be reckoned with in the ongoing battle for gun control. Stay tuned, guys, because this is going to be one heck of a ride. Public awareness, the silent approach. So here's the deal. That incoming gun ban law that we talked about earlier isn't exactly making the rounds in your daily newsfeed. It's flying under the radar, which is a bit surprising. We'd expect a game-changing piece of legislation to be all over the headlines, right? Well, that's not exactly the case here. The proposed gun ban law has got some serious implications. It's looking at restrictions on semi-auto weapons and high-capacity mags. That's not small potatoes, by the way. You would think that the airwaves would be buzzing with chatter about it, but they're not. Why the hush-hush approach then, you ask? It's a strategic move by those behind the law. They're not drumming up a media circus about this. They're taking the subtle route. This might be why you haven't seen it plastered across your TV screens or dominating your social media feeds. But here's the catch. The lack of public awareness is a bit of a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's keeping things calm and collected. On the other hand, many citizens might not fully grasp the potential consequences of this legislation.
To run enhanced background checks on young people under 21 trying to buy a firearm.
This government can protect its own people, except for 36 out of every 100,000 for murders.
Types of disputes that would be settled by people yelling at each other, maybe engaging in a fist fight, are being settled with guns.
I'm just inspired by the next generation. I think it's a time for a big change.
It's like a ticking time bomb, quietly counting down without most people even knowing it's there. The conversation around the Second Amendment is a pivotal point. The law is making some folks anxious about their gun ownership rights, and others are advocating for increased safety. But the silent approach to introducing it has left many folks in the dark. So there you have it, the gun ban law that no one is talking about, but soon it's going to be a reality. It's a calculated strategy to keep things low-key, and it's working. But now that you know, it's time to break the silence and get informed, because whether you're for it or against it, this law is shaping up to be a game changer in the world of gun control. Political implications, shifting landscape. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about the incoming gun ban law and its political implications, shall we? You see, this proposed legislation isn't just making waves in the firearm world, it's causing a political earthquake. It's got politicians and pundits all hot and bothered, and for a good reason. First off, the debate is intense. It's like a high-stakes poker game with all players showing their cards. On one hand, you've got proponents of the law arguing it's a vital step towards enhanced public safety. They're waving the banner of responsible gun control and reducing firearm-related incidents.
And no one contends otherwise, but what are the limits? Wouldn't it be nice to hear?
Requires agencies to submit a rule to Congress before the rule can take effect. After submission of a rule by the agency,
or policies as before us today to make it harder for law-abiding citizens to obtain firearms.
Year-old adults, guns that are in common use. It bans for everyone.
Roughly 40 million firearms with stabilizing braces in circulation to obtain a special registration.
And yet at Uvalde and in so many other school shootings, we were not willing to protect our children.
On the other hand, you've got staunch opponents who see this as an infringement on their Second Amendment rights. They're clutching their firearms and chanting "shall not be infringed." Now here's where it gets more interesting. The incoming gun ban law isn't just about firearms, it's about politics too. It's shaking up the political landscape, and it's influencing election campaigns and party affiliations. Politicians are taking sides on this one, and it's not just about ideology anymore. It's about votes and seats in Congress. Whether you're a red state Republican or a blue state Democrat, this law could be a game changer. The law's passage or rejection could tip the balance of power in various levels of government. It's like a giant game of Jenga. If the law goes through, some political blocks might topple and new ones will rise. Advocacy and opposition, voices rising. Alright folks, in the red corner, we've got the gun control advocates, and in the blue corner, the staunch defenders of the Second Amendment. It's a heavyweight battle of advocacy and opposition. So here's what's happening right now. Advocacy groups and organizations from both sides of the gun control debate are springing into action. They're mobilizing their members and supporters like never before. It's like the calm before the storm. They're rallying the troops for a showdown. On one side, you've got the proponents of the incoming gun ban law. They're waving the banner of increased public safety and lower gun violence. They're tired of mass slayings and tragic incidents, and they're saying enough is enough. Their argument is all about saving lives and making society safer. But on the other hand, you've got the opponents of this law. They're not just waving flags, they're unfurling the Constitution.
June of 2021, you changed the department's asylum rules so that it could apply to individuals with significant gang violence.
Most apparent here, a defense of the Second Amendment, which this most certainly is.
Weim says the Missouri law exposes people to greater harm by interfering with the federal government's ability to enforce firearms regulations.
Because people buy hundreds of guns legally and then they sell them illegally.
They're shouting about their sacred Second Amendment rights, declaring that the government has no business messing with them. Their argument revolves around freedom and individual liberties. The battle between these advocacy groups is becoming more pronounced as the legislation advances. It's like a crescendo building up in a rock concert. You can hear it louder and louder as the show goes on. These groups aren't just sitting on the sidelines. They're in the ring, duking it out with arguments, rallies, and lobbying efforts. The gun ban law is the battleground, and these voices are like the cheering crowds urging their fighters forward. So whether you're for stricter gun control or for preserving your Second Amendment rights, there's one thing for sure. These voices that are rising are making their impact felt. This isn't just a debate, it's a full-blown battle, and the outcome could reshape the landscape of gun control in the United States. It's like a championship match, and it's anyone's game. The future of firearms regulations. The incoming gun ban law isn't just a one-time event, it's a starting point for what could be a whole new chapter in firearm regulations. Here's the deal, if the law does go through, it's not just about the restrictions it imposes, it's about the signal that it sends. Other states might look at this as a precedent and think, hey, if it worked there, maybe we should give it a shot too. It's like a new trend in the world of legislation. But what's more, it's not just the states that are watching this closely, it's the big players in Washington. If a significant gun control law makes waves in one state, it could start a ripple effect that eventually reaches the federal level. It's like a small snowball that's rolling down a hill and becoming an avalanche. Policymakers and stakeholders aren't taking this lightly. They're scrutinizing every move, every vote, and every statement because they know that this incoming gun ban law could be a turning point in the history of gun control.
Conventional wisdom was we would never get any Republicans to support gun legislation, period.
Are ones where, in fact, it's most likely that they should be bringing the highest and mandatory minimum.
Details of the law, but folks, listen at home. Here's a quick summary of what this law is doing. It's already allowing.
Are demonstrating that blind loyalty to Speaker Dade Phelan is more important than upholding their oath of office.
Might end up being a message amendment because the President of the United States will almost assuredly veto it.
So what lies ahead? Well, it's a future where firearm regulations could get a lot stricter. It's a future where the landscape of gun laws might change significantly. We've got to explore not just the law itself, but its potential impact on the wider world of firearm regulations. It's like the prologue to a novel setting the stage for what could be a new era in gun control. The future is uncertain, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Thanks a lot for watching this video with us, guys. See you next time, and bye for now.